The fall of the Zirans. The crystal spires of Zyra Prime glittered in the light of its twin suns, a sight that had inspired awe in visitors for millennia. But today, those spires trembled. The Zyran civilization, once the beacon of peace and scientific progress in the Andromeda galaxy, now faced its darkest hour. High Counselor Elia stood before the emergency gathering of the Galactic Confederation, her luminescent skin pulsing with distress. The holographic projections of representatives from 100 different species surrounded her, their faces a mixture of concern, indifference, and poorly concealed relief that it wasn't their world under attack. Esteemed colleagues, Elia began, her melodic voice carrying a tremor of desperation. I stand before you not as the leader of the Zyran people, but as a supplicant. The Khazral Armada has breached our outer defenses. Our colonies have fallen. Zyra Prime itself will be under siege within days. She paused, allowing the gravity of her words to sink in. We need your help. We beg for your intervention. The chamber fell silent. The Zirans, with their advanced technology and pacifist philosophy, had long been the mediators of galactic disputes. They had championed causes of peace, encouraged scientific cooperation, and provided aid to developing civilizations. Now, in their hour of need, they looked to those they had helped for salvation. Ambassador Croax of the Valrethi Imperium was the first to speak. High Counselor, while the Valrethi people sympathize with your plight, we cannot risk open conflict with the Khazral. Their military might is substantial. We must prioritize the safety of our own worlds. Similar sentiments echoed throughout the chamber. The Zirans had no standing army, no warships, no weapons of mass destruction. Their technology, advanced as it was, focused on creation, not destruction. In the face of the Khazral's brutality, they were defenseless. As excuses and apologies flowed, Elia felt a cold realization settle in her core. They were alone. The very principles that had made the Zirans respected, their dedication to peace, their refusal to build weapons, had now rendered them expendable in the eyes of the galaxy. Please, Elia implored, her voice breaking. We have children, elders, billions of innocent lives at stake. Is there no one who will stand with us? The silence that followed was deafening. With a heavy heart, Elia left the chamber. As her ship departed the Confederation space station, she gazed out at the stars, wondering how many of them harbored worlds that would soon hear of Zura's fall and whisper, better them than us. Back on Zyra Prime, the situation deteriorated rapidly. The Khazral, a warrior race driven by a zealous belief in their own supremacy, had long viewed the Zirans as an affront to the natural order. A species that refused to fight, that sought to elevate others rather than conquer them, was an aberration that could not be allowed to persist. In the grand archives of Zyra Prime, Arwen, the young head archivist, worked feverishly. We must preserve our knowledge, she insisted to her team. If we fall, let the galaxy remember who we were, what we stood for. As they raced to upload the sum total of Ziran art, science, and philosophy to secure data cores, the first explosions rocked the city. The Khazral bombardment had begun. In the medical centers, Dr. Zhen coordinated the evacuation of patients, moved the critical cases to the underground shelters. He ordered, his usually calm demeanor strained. We'll do what we can for the others here. But where could they evacuate to? Every Zyran colony had fallen. Their pleas for asylum had been met with silence or outright refusal. The galaxy had decided the Zyrans were a lost cause. In orbit, the last remnants of the Zyran defense fleet, a cobbled-together assortment of retrofitted science vessels and civilian transports, faced the overwhelming might of the Khazral Armada. Captain Lyra, a scientist who had never imagined she'd be in command of a warship, steeled herself for the impossible task ahead. We can't win this fight, she told her crew, a mix of scientists and civilians pressed into service. But every minute we hold them back is another minute for our people on the surface to find safety. We fight not for victory, but for time. As the Khazral ships opened fire, ripping through the makeshift Zyran defenses, Lyra closed her eyes for a moment. In that brief respite, she saw not the impending doom, but the beauty of her world, the floating gardens of Zyra Prime, the bioluminescent forests of the southern continent, the intricate dance of quantum particles that Zyran scientists had only begun to unravel. For Zyra, she whispered, opening her eyes, for all that we were and all that we could have been. On the surface, as chaos engulfed the cities, a small group gathered in a hidden bunker deep beneath the capital. Led by Elia, they represented the last hope of the Zyran people. "The galactic community has abandoned us," Elia said, her voice heavy with the weight of billions of lives. "But we cannot abandon hope. We have one last option." She gestured to a device in the center of the room, a piece of technology that the Zyrans had developed but never used. A long-range distress beacon capable of sending a message beyond the boundaries of known space. "We will send out a call," Elia explained, "not to those who have already turned their backs on us, but to the unknown. Somewhere out there must be a civilization that still values compassion, that still believes in standing up for those who cannot stand up for themselves." As the team worked to activate the beacon, calibrating it to bypass the usual channels of galactic communication, Elia composed the message. It was not a detailed explanation of their plight or a list of what they needed. Instead, it was a simple plea, broadcast in every format they could manage. "We are the Zyrans. We face extinction. Our children cry out for salvation. If there is kindness left in the universe, if there are those who still believe in justice and mercy, we beg you, help us." The message shot out into the cosmos, carrying with it the last hopes of a dying civilization. As it traveled faster than light, racing past stars and through nebulae, the Zyrans on their besieged homeworld could only wait and pray. Little did they know that their call would reach a small blue planet on the outskirts of the Milky Way galaxy, a world whose inhabitants, despite their own conflicts and struggles, had never lost their capacity for empathy, their drive to protect the vulnerable, their willingness to stand up against impossible odds. As the first Khazral ships breached Zyra's atmosphere, as the great crystal spires began to fall, a response was already racing back across the vast gulfs of space. "This is Earth. We hear you. Hold on. We're coming." The fate of the Zyrans, and perhaps the very soul of the galaxy, now rested in the hands of a species the Andromeda had never encountered: humanity. Humanity's response. The message from Zyra arrived on Earth in the early hours of a crisp autumn morning. At first, it was just another blip on the radar at SETI's listening post in New Mexico. But as the computers began to decode the alien transmission, alarms started blaring across the facility. Dr. Samantha Chen, the lead Sinolinguist on duty, felt her heart race as she read the translation. "This is it," she whispered, her hands shaking. "First contact, and they're asking for help." Within hours, the news had spread across the globe. Governments convened emergency sessions, scientists pored over the data, and the public was gripped by a mixture of excitement and fear. Humanity had long wondered if they were alone in the universe. Now they knew they weren't, and their first alien encounter was a desperate plea for salvation. In Washington, D.C., President Elena Rodriguez sat at the head of a tense meeting of the National Security Council. "What are our options?" she asked, her eyes scanning the room. Admiral James Harper, a veteran of numerous conflicts, spoke up first. "Madam President, we have to consider the risks. We know nothing about these aliens or the threat they're facing. Intervening could drag us into an interstellar war we're not prepared for." Dr. Chen, who had been flown in to consult, countered, "But can we live with ourselves if we do nothing? This could be our moment to prove that humanity is ready to join a larger galactic community." The debate raged on, mirroring similar discussions happening in capitals around the world. Some argued for caution, others for immediate action. The ethical implications were enormous. Did humanity have a moral obligation to help an unknown species? Could Earth's nations even agree on a course of action? As the arguments continued, a different conversation was taking place in a small diner in Roswell, New Mexico. Captain Sarah Martinez, one of Earth's most decorated astronauts, sat across from her old friend, Dr. Aiden Kojima, a brilliant but eccentric astrophysicist. "We can't wait for the politicians to make up their minds," Sarah said, her voice low but intense. "By the time they decide, it could be too late for the Zirans." Aiden nodded, pushing his thick-rimmed glasses up his nose. "I've been running the numbers. With my latest propulsion theories and some creative engineering, we could retrofit the ISS Horizon for interstellar travel." Sarah's eyes widened. The Horizon was humanity's most advanced spacecraft, designed for long-term exploration of the solar system. "You're talking about stealing $1 trillion ship for an unauthorized rescue mission across the galaxy." "I prefer to think of it as aggressive borrowing for the greater good," Aiden grinned. "But we'd need a crew, people willing to risk everything." Sarah took a deep breath, then smiled. "I might know a few crazy enough to try." Over the next 48 hours, as world leaders continued to debate, a covert operation unfolded. Sarah and Aiden reached out to a select group of individuals. Maya Patel, a hotshot pilot with a rebellious streak. Dr. Zora Okoro, a xenobiologist with an unquenchable curiosity about alien life. Lai Wei, a tactical genius with a heart of gold. And George Mendoza, an engineering prodigy who could make miracles happen with duct tape and determination. They gathered in secret at a remote airfield, each bringing crucial skills and technology. As Aiden outlined his plan to hijack and modify the Horizon, the gravity of what they were about to do sank in. "This is treason," Maya said bluntly. "If we fail, we'll be lucky to spend the rest of our lives in prison. And if we do nothing, an entire civilization dies." Sarah countered. "I don't know about you, but I became an astronaut to explore and to make a difference. This might be the most important mission humanity has ever undertaken." One by one, they nodded their agreement. They were outlaws now, but they were also humanity's best hope of answering the Zirans' call. As the team worked tirelessly to prepare, events on the global stage took an unexpected turn. Leaked footage of the Ziran distress call went viral, sparking massive public demonstrations across the planet. People of all nations and creeds united in their demand: help the Zirans. The pressure became too much for world leaders to ignore. In a historic joint session of the United Nations, a resolution was passed to mount a rescue mission. But as the details of the operation were being hashed out, news broke that changed everything. The ISS Horizon had vanished from Earth orbit, along with several of the planet's top scientific minds and most skilled astronauts. President Rodriguez stood before a bank of cameras, her face a mask of controlled fury. "To the crew of the Horizon," she said, looking directly into the lens, "you have committed an act of theft against every nation on Earth. But you have also embodied the very best of humanity: our compassion, our courage, and our unyielding desire to help those in need. Go with the hopes and prayers of humanity. Bring our new friends home." On board the Horizon, now accelerating towards the edge of the solar system, Sarah and her crew watched the president's address in stunned silence. "Well," George finally said, breaking the tension, "I guess we're not going to prison after all." As laughter filled the ship's command center, Sarah felt a swell of pride in her species. They had taken an impossible risk, but they weren't alone. They carried with them the spirit of their entire planet. "Aiden," she called out, "how long until we reach Ziran space?" The scientist checked his calculations. "At maximum speed, using my experimental drive. About 3 weeks." Sarah nodded, her face set with determination. "Let's hope the Zirans can hold out that long. We're coming, friends. Just hold on." As the Horizon disappeared into the depths of space, humanity held its collective breath. Their first step into the galactic community wasn't a cautious one. It was a headlong rush to the aid of strangers. For better or worse, the human race had announced its presence to the cosmos not with words, but with action. The mission to save Zira had begun. But the greatest challenges, and the true test of humanity's resolve, still lay ahead in the vast, unknown expanses of the Andromeda Galaxy. The journey and first contact. The ISS Horizon streaked through the void, pushing the boundaries of human technology and determination. Inside, the crew worked tirelessly, preparing for the unknown challenges that awaited them in the Andromeda Galaxy. Captain Sarah Martinez stood at the ship's observation deck, watching as unfamiliar stars streaked by. "Status report," she called over the intercom. "Engineering's holding steady," Jorg's voice crackled back. "Aiden's drive is performing beyond expectations. We're making better time than we hoped." Dr. Zara Okoro chimed in next. "I've been analyzing the Zyran message. Their biology seems fascinatingly diverse. I'm developing protocols for potential medical aid. Weapon systems are online." Lai Wei reported, a hint of worry in his voice. "Though I hope we won't need them." Sarah nodded to herself. They were as ready as they could be, given the circumstances. But as she stared into the abyss of space, doubts gnawed at her. Were they truly prepared to face an advanced alien threat? Could a single Earth ship really make a difference in an interstellar conflict? Her musings were interrupted by Maya's excited voice. "Captain, we're picking up some kind of space anomaly ahead. It's like nothing I've ever seen." The crew gathered on the bridge, staring in awe at the swirling vortex that had appeared before them. Streams of energy in impossible colors danced across the view screen. "It's a wormhole," Aiden breathed, his eyes wide with wonder. "A stable wormhole. The Zirans must have sent us coordinates to this shortcut." Sarah felt a mix of excitement and trepidation. "Can we trust it?" Aiden nodded emphatically. "This technology is way beyond us. It's got to be of Ziran origin. It could cut our journey time down to days instead of weeks." After a moment of hesitation, Sarah made her decision. "Take us in, Maya. Nice and easy." The horizon approached the wormhole, the ship seeming tiny and fragile next to the cosmic phenomenon. As they crossed the event horizon, the crew felt a momentary sensation of stretching, as if reality itself was being pulled apart and reassembled. When they emerged on the other side, a collective gasp filled the bridge. The familiar patterns of the Milky Way were gone, replaced by the alien star fields of Andromeda. They had crossed millions of light-years in a matter of moments. But there was no time to celebrate their monumental journey. Alerts blared across the ship's systems. Multiple contacts. Lai shouted, "We've got a massive fleet dead ahead. Energy signatures are off the charts." On the view screen, an armada of sleek, predatory ships came into focus. Their hulls bristled with weapons, all trained on the horizon. "This is Captain Sarah Martinez of the Earth ship Horizon," Sarah broadcast, her voice steady despite her racing heart. "We've come in response to the Zyran distress call. We mean you no harm." For a tense moment, there was no response. Then, a harsh, guttural voice filled the command center. "Unidentified vessel, you have entered Kazral space. Prepare to be boarded and your crew interrogated. Any resistance will result in immediate destruction." The crew exchanged worried glances. They had hoped to avoid a direct confrontation with the Kazral, at least until they had made contact with the Zirans. "What now, Captain?" Maya asked, her hands hovering over the ship's controls. Sarah's mind raced. They couldn't fight their way through such a massive fleet, but surrender wasn't an option either. Then an idea struck her. "George, can you give me everything we've got on the engines?" "Maya, plot a course directly for the center of their fleet." "Lai, charge weapons but don't fire." Her crew looked at her as if she'd lost her mind, but they trusted her. As the horizon surged forward, the Kazral ships began to move, trying to encircle them. "Now, Maya, take us into a barrel roll and cut all non-essential power." The horizon spun, narrowly avoiding enemy fire. In the confusion, with their sensors struggling to lock onto the erratically moving and now dimly powered Earth ship. The Kazrel fleet's formation broke. There, Sarah pointed to a gap between two massive cruisers. Full power to engines. Get us through that gap. The Horizon shot forward, threading the needle between the Kazrel ships. Caught off guard by the audacious maneuver, the alien fleet's coordination faltered. As they cleared the Armada, Aiden shouted in triumph, "I'm picking up a signal. It's got to be from the Zirans." Following the new coordinates, the Horizon raced away from the regrouping Kazrel fleet. They entered a dense asteroid field, the debris providing cover from their pursuers. Navigating the treacherous field pushed Maya's piloting skills to the limit, but she guided them through with a combination of skill and intuitive feel for the ship's movements. Finally, they emerged in a clearing within the asteroid field. There, nestled among the rocks, was a sight that took their breath away. A massive space station, its crystalline structure reflecting the light of distant stars, hung suspended in space. Its design was organic, almost alive, utterly alien yet hauntingly beautiful. A new voice, melodic and filled with a mixture of hope and disbelief, came through the ship's speakers. "Unknown vessel, this is Zyran Sanctuary Station Novalis. We received your transmission. You came to help us." Sarah felt a lump in her throat as she responded. "This is Captain Sarah Martins of the Earth ship Horizon. Yes, we're here to help. We heard your call." There was a moment of silence, then the voice returned, thick with emotion. "Earth, we've never heard of your world. You crossed galaxies for us, even when our own neighbors abandoned us. It's what we do." Sarah replied simply. "Now, how can we help?" As the Horizon docked with the Zyran station, the crew knew that the real challenge was just beginning. They had made it to Andromeda, evaded the Kazrel, and made first contact. But the Zyran people were still in danger, and the Kazrel would undoubtedly be hunting for them. The fate of two galaxies now hung in the balance, with humanity's first interstellar mission at the center of it all. As the airlock cycled, and the crew prepared to meet the Zirans face to face, they steeled themselves for whatever came next. They had crossed the universe to be here. Failure was not an option. Battle for survival. As the airlock hissed open, Captain Sarah Martinez and her crew found themselves face to face with the Zirans for the first time. The alien beings before them were a sight to behold. Tall, slender figures with iridescent skin that seemed to shimmer with an inner light. Their large, almond-shaped eyes regarded the humans with a mixture of curiosity, hope, and lingering fear. High Counselor Elia stepped forward, her crystalline staff clicking softly against the floor. "Welcome, brave ones from Earth. I am Elia, leader of what remains of the Zyran people. We cannot express our gratitude for your coming." Sarah nodded respectfully. "We're honored to be here, High Counselor. I'm Captain Sarah Martins, and this is my crew. We've come to help in any way we can." As introductions were made, Dr. Zora Okoro couldn't contain her scientific curiosity. "Your biology is fascinating," she blurted out, then blushed. "I mean, if you don't mind, I'd love to learn more about your people." A Zyran scientist named Vex stepped forward, his skin pulsing with excited colors. "We would be delighted to exchange knowledge, Dr. Okoro. Perhaps your insights could help us in our current crisis." The mood sobered quickly as Elia led them to the station's command center. Holographic displays showed the dire situation. The Kazrel fleet had all but surrounded the asteroid field, and they were methodically destroying the debris, clearing a path to the hidden Zyran sanctuary. "We've bought some time with stealth technology and misdirection," Elia explained, her voice heavy. "But it's only a matter of days, perhaps hours, before they find us. We've gathered here the last of our kind. Scientists, artists, children. If this station falls, so does our entire civilization." Lai Wei studied the tactical displays, his mind racing. "Your stealth tech is impressive, but you're right. It won't hold forever. We need a plan to neutralize that fleet." George, who had been examining the Zyran technology with undisguised awe, spoke up. "What if we could supercharge your stealth systems? Create a bubble big enough to hide the entire station." Vex's skin rippled with excitement. "Theoretically possible, but we lack the power source for such an endeavor." "The Horizon's engines," Aiden interjected. "If we modify them, route the power through your systems." As the humans and Zyrans began to collaborate, bouncing ideas off each other at a rapid pace, Sarah felt a glimmer of hope. This was what humanity did best. Faced with impossible odds, they innovated, adapted, and overcame. Over the next few hours, a plan took shape. They would create a massive stealth field around the station, while simultaneously rigging the asteroid field with gravity mines, Zyran devices that could alter localized gravity, turning the very rocks into weapons. But it wasn't enough to simply hide. They needed a way to neutralize the Khazral threat for good. It was Maya who proposed the audacious final stroke. "We use the Horizon as bait. Draw their fleet in, then detonate the entire asteroid field. The combined gravity fluctuations should create a localized singularity, a black hole that'll swallow their ships." The room fell silent as they contemplated the risk. It could work, but the timing would have to be perfect. One miscalculation, and they'd all be pulled into the vortex. Sarah looked around at her crew, then at the Zyrans whose lives hung in the balance. "It's dangerous as hell," she said finally, "but I don't see another option. Let's do it." The next day was a flurry of activity. Humans and Zyrans worked side by side, melding their technologies in ways neither species had imagined possible. The Horizon was integrated into the station's systems, its powerful engines providing the energy needed for the massive stealth field. As they worked, bonds formed. George and Vex excitedly discussed engineering principles. Zara learned more about Zyran biology and shared insights from Earth medicine. Lai and the Zyran tactical officers planned the intricate dance of gravity mines. Aiden found himself working closely with a young Zyran scientist named Lyra. As they calibrated the gravity mines, he couldn't help but ask, "Aren't you afraid? This plan, it's a long shot." Lyra's skin shimmered with a soft blue light. "Of course I'm afraid. But you came across galaxies to help us. How can we do any less than match your courage?" Finally, the moment of truth arrived. The Khazral fleet had nearly cleared the asteroid field. It was now or never. Sarah stood on the Horizon's bridge, her crew at their stations. Elia's hologram flickered beside her, the Zyran leader coordinating from the station's command center. "Stealth field activated," George reported. "Gravity mines in position," Lai added. Sarah took a deep breath. "Maya, take us out. Nice and easy. Let them see us." The Horizon emerged from the asteroid field, seemingly alone and vulnerable. The reaction from the Khazral was immediate. Their entire fleet turned, weapons charging, hungry for the prey that had eluded them earlier. "They're taking the bait," Maya said, her voice tense. "Multiple ships on an intercept course." Sarah watched the tactical display, her heart racing. The Khazral fleet was spreading out, trying to flank them. Just a little further. "Now," Sarah shouted. Maya threw the Horizon into a series of wild maneuvers, dodging enemy fire as they raced back into the asteroid field. The Khazral ships followed, their battle lust overriding caution. "Gravity mines activated," Lai called out. The effect was immediate and catastrophic for the Khazral. Asteroids suddenly changed course, slamming into ships with devastating force. Localized gravity wells tore others apart. "They're in position," Aiden reported, his voice tight with tension, ready to initiate singularity. Sarah closed her eyes for a brief moment. So much could go wrong, but there was no turning back now. "Do it," she ordered. Aiden and Lyra, working in tandem from the station, triggered the final sequence. The gravity mines detonated in a carefully choreographed pattern, their energies combining and multiplying. Space itself seemed to twist and warp. A yawning black maw opened in the heart of the Khazral fleet. Ships were drawn in, unable to escape the overwhelming gravitational pull. "Get us out of here," Sarah shouted. Maya poured every ounce of her skill into piloting, fighting against the pull of the newly formed singularity. The horizon shuddered, straining against forces it was never designed to withstand. For a heart-stopping moment, it seemed they too would be pulled in. Then, with a final burst from the engines, they broke free. Behind them, the last of the Kazral fleet vanished into the swirling vortex. Then, as quickly as it had formed, the singularity collapsed in on itself and winked out of existence. Silence fell over the bridge, broken only by the sound of ragged breathing. Did we do it?" George asked, his voice barely a whisper. Aiden checked his readings, then looked up, a mixture of disbelief and joy on his face. "We did it. The Kazral fleet is gone. It actually worked." Cheers erupted on the bridge, echoed by jubilant cries from the Zyran station. Against all odds, they had succeeded. The Zyran people were saved. As the horizon docked once more with the station, Sarah knew that this was more than just a rescue mission. It was the beginning of something much bigger, a partnership between two species from different galaxies, brought together by compassion and courage. The battle was won, but the adventure was far from over. As humans and Zyrans embraced in celebration, the foundations of a new galactic era were being laid, one of cooperation, discovery, and hope. A new alliance. In the days following the defeat of the Kazral fleet, a palpable sense of relief and excitement permeated the Zyran sanctuary station. Humans and Zyrans worked tirelessly together, repairing damages and solidifying their unexpected alliance. Captain Sarah Martinez stood before a gathering of both species, her crew beside her and High Counselor Elia at her side. The large chamber buzzed with anticipation. "Today," Sarah began, her voice carrying across the room, "we celebrate not just victory, but the birth of something extraordinary. When we left Earth, we were explorers and rescuers. Now we find ourselves architects of a bridge between galaxies." Elia stepped forward, her crystalline staff glowing softly. "The Zyran people owe our very existence to the bravery and compassion of humanity. You came when all others turned away. You risked everything for a people you had never met. This debt can never be fully repaid, but we offer all that we are in friendship and alliance." The chamber erupted in applause and the musical trills that served as the Zyran equivalent. As it died down, Dr. Zara Okoro approached the podium, excitement evident in her voice. "The medical and scientific exchange between our peoples has already yielded incredible results," she announced. "Zyran biotechnology, combined with human medical practices, promises to cure diseases long thought incurable. And that's just the beginning." George and Vex stepped up next, the human engineer and his Zyran counterpart practically bouncing with enthusiasm. "We've begun integrating Zyran crystal tech with our own systems," George explained. "The potential applications are mind-boggling. Clean energy, faster than light communication, even the possibility of teleportation." Vex's skin rippled with agreeing colors, and human ingenuity has opened new avenues in our own research. Together, we stand on the brink of a technological renaissance. As the presentations continued, detailing the myriad ways human and Zyran cooperation was already bearing fruit, Sarah felt a deep sense of pride. This was why they had come, not just to save lives, but to forge connections that would elevate both species. Later, as the formal ceremonies wound down, Sarah found herself in a quiet corner with Elia and Aiden. The young scientist was deep in conversation with Lyra, the Zyran researcher he had worked so closely with during the crisis. They seemed to have bonded, Elia observed, a hint of amusement in her melodic voice. Sarah nodded, smiling. "I've seen that look before. I think we might be witnessing the first human-Zyran romance." Elia's skin shimmered with a warm glow, a fitting symbol for our new alliance, perhaps. Her tone grew more serious. "Captain, what happens now?" Your mission is complete, but I sense you and your crew are reluctant to leave." Sarah took a deep breath, considering her words carefully. "To be honest, High Counselor, I'm not sure we can leave. Not yet. What we've started here, it's bigger than a rescue mission. It's the beginning of a whole new chapter for both our peoples." Elia nodded solemnly. "I agree, which is why I have a proposal. We plan to send an embassy to Earth to formally establish diplomatic relations, but we would be entering a galaxy entirely unknown to us. We would be honored if you and your crew would act as our guides and ambassadors." Sarah felt a thrill of excitement at the idea. A Zyran delegation to Earth. The impact would be enormous. It would change everything. For both our peoples, Elia agreed, and perhaps in time, for both our galaxies. As they discussed the details of this ambitious plan, Sarah's mind raced with the possibilities. The Horizon, once a ship of exploration, would become a vessel of diplomacy, carrying the hopes of two civilizations across the cosmic gulf between Andromeda and the Milky Way. The next morning, Sarah gathered her crew to present Elia's proposal. To her surprise, the response was unanimous and immediate. "Are you kidding? Of course we're in," Maya exclaimed, her eyes shining with excitement. Lai nodded firmly. "We've come too far to turn back now. This is our chance to shape the future. The scientific opportunities alone are staggering," Zara added. "We'd be fools to walk away." George grinned broadly. "Plus, I'm just starting to figure out how their crystal tech works. I'm not going anywhere." Aiden, a faint blush on his cheeks, simply said, "I think we all have our reasons to stay." Sarah felt a swell of pride in her crew. "Then it's settled. We'll need to contact Earth, prepare them for what's coming. This won't be easy. There will be those who fear this change, who resist the idea of alien contact. But think of those who will embrace it," Aiden countered. "The scientists, the dreamers, the explorers, will be opening up a whole new universe of possibilities." As the crew dispersed to begin preparations for their monumental journey, Sarah took a moment to stand at the observation deck. The unfamiliar stars of Andromeda glittered before her, no longer alien, but full of promise. They had come to save a civilization, but they had achieved so much more. They had taken humanity's first steps into a larger galaxy, forged an alliance that spanned the cosmic void, and laid the groundwork for a future brighter than any they could have imagined. As Sarah watched a group of human and Zyran children playing together, their laughter a universal language of joy, she knew that whatever challenges lay ahead, they were on the right path. The journey that had begun with a desperate plea for help had become a voyage of discovery, not just of new worlds and new civilizations, but of the boundless potential when different peoples came together in friendship and common purpose. The Horizon's mission was far from over. In many ways, it had only just begun. With the Zyran embassy preparing for their historic journey to Earth, and the promise of a new era of galactic cooperation on the horizon, Sarah knew that the greatest adventures still lay ahead. As she turned to join her crew and their new Zyran allies, Captain Sarah Martinez allowed herself a smile. They had crossed galaxies to save a dying race. In doing so, they had not only rescued the Zyrans, but perhaps the very soul of humanity itself. The stars, once distant and unreachable, now beckoned with infinite possibilities. The future, vast and bright, awaited.